Okay, we're almost there. Hi, good morning everybody, and welcome back to the Kristin Omdahl Show. This is episode, what is it, 1122? Yes, it's episode 1122, and we are here live in Southwest Florida in my studio. It's also Giving Tuesday, which is our make-along day for Shawls for Sharing. Shawls for Sharing is my charity initiative that raises awareness and raises funds for survivors of domestic violence. We're going to be talking about the Alicia knit shawl pattern today, and also some of the ways we can reuse the pattern and chart to do other things. First, I would like to thank my sponsors. This season's sponsors are I Like Knitting Magazine and Ancient Art Fibers, who donated the yarn for these beautiful samples and the shawl. Let's see who is here this morning so I can say hello to everybody. You can get the links and information about our sponsors in the video description and in the pattern page where you can download the Alicia knit shawl pattern. Let's see who's here. Hi Judy W. Hi Val. Hi Joe. Hi Judy K. Hi Thea. Hi Marcia and Sunshine, Sharon, Marcia, Angela. Good morning everybody, happy Tuesday. Hope everybody's having a great day so far. Judy is also sharing links in the live chat if anybody wants to open up additional browsers now. I know some of you enjoy doing that, not necessarily to go to those posts right away. You want to stay here and talk about everything that's going on, but you can open up an extra browser so it's handy for you when the show's over. Hi Geraldine and Kimberly, good morning. Hope everybody's having a great day so far. So if you're new and you haven't been here before, what we're doing is talking about the Alicia knit shawl pattern on Tuesdays, where we're doing a make along, and anybody that wants to join me can. And oh, thank you. Yes, tomorrow is my birthday, and I have two special announcements tomorrow. There is a video live premiered at 9:30, and the podcast is scheduled for 10 o'clock. So if you want to join me for tomorrow on my birthday, you can at 9:30 and 10 o'clock. And so in this pattern, I have a chart that's does a very subtle raised pattern in the gusset of X's and O's to symbolize hugs and kisses for the gift recipient of whoever you're sending the shawl to or giving the shawl to. Could even be for yourself if you really needed that extra TLC from yourself. That's okay too. And over the last few weeks, months, I guess we've been doing this months now, I've been showing you different ways to use the chart from, I don't know if this is going to show up on this camera. It will when we do the overhead shot camera. I have a chart in the pattern, and if you have the pattern, you already have the chart. And the chart is for doing that raised stitch pattern of combining knits and purls on the right and wrong side to create that texture. What I've shown you in the following weeks from there is how to convert or look at that chart in different ways to convert it to a beading chart and also a lace chart. We've done this in several of the episodes on Tuesdays show. Now what I wanted to show, and I've shown you how to convert the gusset in the shawl to being plain knit stitches in case you were intimidated by combining the knits and purls. You know, I just want to make sure that everybody feels included, whether you are exclusive knit, exclusive crochet, want to make things simpler or more complicated. I'm happy to discuss any of the options, because there are always lots of options in a pattern, more than you may realize, and that's one of the things that I always like to talk about here live, to just start that conversation. Hi Barbara and Steffi. Thank you, Barbara. I appreciate it. Tomorrow's my birthday, and I will be the big 5-0. Is this 5-0 or is it the other hands? Let's see. Yeah, that's 5-0. And I never know if the camera's reversed or not. And hi, Lewis. Good morning. And so I'll be live. I'll do a live premiere at 9:30 tomorrow morning and a live at 10. And we can bunch of fun stuff to show you tomorrow, but today I want to show you a bunch of fun stuff too. And in order to, we're going to talk about converting this knit chart into a crochet chart this morning, and we're going to need to flip the camera around for that. So let's see if I can reach the camera. We'll say hi to baby Bjorn, sleeping on his pink banky right here. Where's a baby? That's a baby. Okay, so now we'll grab, give me 1 second. This is not easy to do. I'm sure maybe it's easier for some people. It's a little wonky for me to do. So my apologies. Here we go. Let's get that overhead shot going so I can show you this chart and how we're going to try to convert it into a crochet chart. And I got to tell you, I made a couple of mistakes along the way, but oh well. Okay, now my shirt's caught on it. All right. Hey, you know what? Doesn't matter how many obstacles there are, it just matters that you keep trying, right? Okay, so here is our original chart for the knit shawl to be done in knits and purls, and you can see the key on here says the clear squares are knit on right side, purl on wrong side, and the dotted square means knit on right side, wrong side, purl on right side. Yes, Judy, I make mistakes all the time, just like everybody else. Hi, Crazed Vintage Model. Okay, so we talked about in the previous weeks of how we could skip the dots and do this all as knitting. We have talked about how we can convert 2 dotted stitches into a yarn over knit 2 together to create lace. Let me show you. And we talked about how we could look at those dots as bead stitches. So we did this as those dots being beads for a beaded pattern. Okay, and then we showed those dots as yarn over knit 2 togethers to do a lace version of it as well. Okay, now today what I wanted to show you is that, and I'm going to show you in 2 different ways because I wanted you to see some variations. I have a favorite. We'll see what yours are too. I chose to convert the, not convert, well, what's the right way to say this? Let's go back there. I chose to make these dots represent something else. So let's say we wanted to pretend that this is a crochet chart and we wanted to map out these X's and O's in crochet. Well, the fact that the stitch pattern is a pattern on both the right and wrong side, I thought added a little bit of complication to this for a crochet pattern, because if we do any sort of raised stitches like a bobble stitch or cluster stitch, I thought it might be hard to get them to all pop on the right side, but I think if we do that, it might just mean a little bit of manual popping to make sure they all pop to the same side of the row, and you'll see what I mean when I show you the sample. And then I also chose to do this with 5 half double crochet clusters for the, which one did I do? These dots are going to symbolize 5 half double crochet clusters for the X, and then I did 5 double crochet clusters for the O. And I've done the first 7 rows, so we're through here. We just have to do our final set of stitches for the 8th row to do the X's and O's, and you tell me what you think. I think I'll move the light. It might show up better here flat on the table. Can you see it better this way without being backlit? I think being front lit might work a little bit better. So here are the X's in half double crochet clusters where I've been popping the stitches to the right side of the row. And I gotta tell you, I don't really like the half double crochet clusters, but I wanted to show you both ways so you can decide. I also kind of like the idea of only doing 1 instead of 2 side by side, but again, we're looking at a chart and we're exploring. The most important thing I ever want to teach you is to learn that it's okay to explore, because when you're exploring, you're learning something new. Whether you or not you make mistakes along the way, you're learning, and you're learning from your mistakes as well. So it's all good. That's why I wanted to do it in 2 different types of stitches, because I thought we could see a lot there too. I think the 5 double crochet clusters are showing up much better than the 5 half double crochet clusters. This is supposed to be the X and this is supposed to be the O. I think the O is much more prominent and easy to recognize here than the X. What do you think? I think it's even possible I made a mistake on the X's. And do you like it? Do you not like it? Does this seem interesting to you? Does it not seem interesting to you? I will do one row, but I want to get a little feedback and hear what your thoughts are on all of this. And I think when we do the last row, we'll do one plain row of single crochet and then set it down again and then see if we can really see an X and O here. This is an experiment live. I have not done this ahead of time. I made sure to not do this a day ahead of time because I didn't want to not show you imperfections. I wanted to make sure that I did. So I started earlier this morning because I didn't want to overthink it and just wanted to do it. Okay, so let's do the 8th row. Okay, so the 8th row, again, we're doing the O's in 5 double crochet clusters, and we're doing the X in half double crochet clusters. I'm going to read this first and then move it out of the way. And I also added one extra single crochet as like a selvage stitch on either side of the row because some of these started at the beginning of the row, some of them started with a cluster stitch. I thought it was helpful and prudent to put a selvage stitch there first. So for row 8, it's going to start with a selvage single crochet. Then it's going to be 3 single crochets. 2, yes, I understand that, Donna, and you're more than welcome to experiment with that at home, but I'm using the yarns that are provided by our sponsor this season, and I'll just do the best to show it to you in the light. All right, so row 8 is going to start with 1 selvage single crochet, and then it's 3 single crochets, 2 5 double crochet clusters, 5 single crochets, and then remember the X we're doing 5 half double crochet clusters, so then it's 2 5 half double crochet clusters, 4 single crochets, 2 5 half double crochet clusters, and then a single crochet for the selvage stitch. So I'm going to move this out of the way so we can now do row 8. And I'll say exactly what I just said while I was reading the chart while I'm crocheting the stitches too. So it's chain 1, turn our work. Row 8 begins with 1 single crochet selvage stitch. Then it's 3 single crochets. Then it's 2 5 double crochet clusters. A double crochet cluster is yarn over your hook, insert your hook in the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. We'll do that 4 more times. Okay, we should have 6 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 6 loops on our hook. That's a 5 double crochet cluster. And we're going to do a 5 double crochet cluster again in the next stitch, yarn over, insert your hook in the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Then we'll do that 4 more times in the same stitch. Yarn over, pull through all 6 loops on our hook. Then it's 5 single crochets. And then for the X, it's 2 5 half double crochets. Oh, half double crochets, yarn over your hook, insert your hook in the work, yarn over, pull up a loop, then do that 4 more times in the same loop, or same stitch. Should have 11 loops on our hook. I like to try to loosen those up as much as possible to yarn over and pull through all the loops on my hook. If you have trouble with this, you can do it little bits at a time to get all the way through. We'll do that again in the next stitch. And I've lost my place, so let's see, that's 1, there's 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, this was the next stitch. Okay, you notice how I counted backwards there? If you're unsure where your next stitch is, sometimes, especially as beginners, or if you're doing something that you're not used to doing, it's really helpful if you can't figure out where the next stitch is to back engineer or count back from the other end. So I knew that I had a selvage stitch at the end. I knew I was going to have 2 cluster stitches, 4 single crochets, so I knew that this stitch, I wasn't sure if it was a stitch or not. By counting backwards, I was able, through the process of elimination, realize that there was a stitch left there after everything else was accounted for, that could be the stitch. That's a really helpful tip when you're, whether it's because you're working with dark yarn, you're in poor lighting, you don't recognize your stitches, you're doing something new that you're not used to. Counting from the opposite end is one of my favorite tips, and even as a seasoned professional who's been doing this professionally for so many years, I still count backwards to be sure I know if I'm at the right chain. Like when I'm doing fringe chain, like floral fringe on, and doing long chains and trying to figure out where the slip stitch goes, or doing seamless motifs where you do a long chain from the center and then work your from the outside and work your way through when you're doing partial motifs and seamless crochet. Counting from the opposite end is a super helpful tip for recognizing which stitch you need to work into. Okay, so after those 2 5 half double crochet clusters, it's 4 single crochets. Thanks, Marcia. Tomorrow's my birthday. We'll talk, we can celebrate and do fun stuff tomorrow. If you want to join me then, I'll be doing a live premiere video and then a live stream right after that. Okay, and then it's 2 5 half double crochets and 1 single crochet. Unfortunately, I placed my iPad on top of my yarn, and it's making way too much tension when pulling the yarn. I have to fix that. Okay, there's 1. Let me get some more yarn since there's so much weight on it. Ah, Cake Maker, happy birthday to your son, too. We'll do 1 more 5 half double crochet cluster. See how I'm exaggerating the length of my stitches and making them a little extra long? That's because I really like to have a little more wiggle room in here, because yarn over and pull through 11 loops on your hook is sometimes not easy to do. And if you noticed earlier in this tutorial, sometimes if it doesn't work as one fell swoop like that last one did, one of these over here was harder, and if you can just pull through a few at a time, that's fine. And if you really feel uncomfortable and you don't like the way it's going, just start over again. That's fine too. It doesn't matter. And then 1 selvage single crochet at the end. And we're looking more like an X now. We're definitely looking like an O, and the X is looking a little bit better. I do think that I made a mistake here, and I think that this section here should have been mirrored up here, so I do think there's a mistake in the X. I think this section here of 4 cluster stitches should have been centered over these 2, and I'll show you on the chart as well so you can see. And then I do think we need to do 1 row of single crochet, because I've noticed that the cluster stitches don't really appear well until the following row is completed. So this section here over the X, I feel like it's skewed by 1 stitch and off a little bit. So if I were doing this for real, I would redo that one. But let's do 1 whole row of single crochet so that we can see if these stitches pop, and we can compare which cluster stitch we like better. But I will say I am happy to report that I think this chart converted well to cluster stitches and a raised crochet stitch pattern to complement the knit raised stitch pattern that this chart created. What do you think? Hi Donna, good morning. Hello to anybody I missed, and hello to anybody who is here and didn't say hello, or hello to anybody who watches the recorded version later. I'm grateful for everybody who joins me. Okay. So now we'll set that down, and let's compare the right and wrong side of the row. Let's see how this looks on both sides. I have a feeling that in some situations we've got our stitches not popping on the same side of the row perhaps. I also think that because rows of single crochet can sometimes skew right or left, I feel like in order for these to be perfectly straight, I think you need a plain row between your patterning rows, whereas we were able to get the look we wanted by having patterning rows on both right and wrong side in knitting. I feel like in crochet we could have benefited from having a non-pattern row in between. I think that might be why my stitches look skewed on this side. That's possible too. So notice how the 5 double crochet clusters, they are raised on both the right and wrong side. That's awesome. That means this ends up being truly a reversible pattern. And so another reason why I like the 5 double crochet cluster better than the 5 half double crochet cluster. I thought this was going to be overkill, and it turns out I actually like the way this one looks. What do you think? Are you happy with one more than the other? Do you hate them both, like them both? I don't care, you tell me. The point of this was for teaching. I mean, it's okay if you don't like something. I can't decide if I've made mistakes or if I see the X looks better on this side, I think. It looks more prominent. And the O, I think, looks good on both sides. But I do think it will need some zhuzhing on which side you decide to keep it on. You know what we didn't try though was a 5 double crochet popcorn. I think a popcorn stitch is probably going to look even better than the cluster stitch. And so, which did you like better overall? The beaded version, the lace version within the knitting, the lace or the raised texture in the knit version, or the crochet version? And within the crochet, did you like the half double crochet clusters or the double crochet clusters? So that's 5 options I've shown now. I also think that we could do the beading in crochet. I just didn't I just didn't do that today. We could do that another day. But I like this one better, and I think we could also experiment with popcorn stitches on another day too. Okay, so let's turn the camera around now. See if I can get it back up here on our other tripod. Oh, did it work? Yeah, everybody's going to have their favorites, that's for sure. But I like the fact that we've had so many options to share that you can decide what your favorites are. Certainly not everything's for everybody, and that's okay, right? Yeah, knitted with the raised texture was the initial inspiration, and I do like that. I think it's so subtle and beautiful and so meaningful. I love how meaningful it is. But I also like the fact that a really simple chart like this can be converted into so many different things. And, you know, like we've said before, there's a time and a place for everything. There's a yarn and a stitch pattern for everything. There's a time and a place for everything. And I think knowing that you can use that chart in different ways means that you can use that chart with anything, whether it's if you wanted to experiment with this with a thicker yarn or a thinner yarn. I think if you were going to do thinner yarns, I think the lace might be the most prominent way to show the X's and O's. And I think if you were going to use thicker yarns, I think you would have more options and the beading. I think if you're going to use thinner yarn, I think the beading, so thinner than number 3 DK weight, I would go with the beading or the lace yarn overs. I think DK weight and thicker, DK weight all the way up to a number 6 super bulky would show this raised stitch pattern beautifully. And then I think in the crochet one, I do think the bigger the yarn, the more you would see those. But I think you could actually do the crochet version in, I think because those bobble stitches, and and or popcorns and cluster stitches would be so raised, so much more exaggerated, that I think that you could get that look on any weight yarn, to be honest with you. Yeah, variety is the spice of life, absolutely. And that's what I think is so cool. I mean, if I were to have asked you 5 weeks ago, what do you think we could do with this chart besides what the chart says to do, I would imagine a lot of you would have said, I don't know. So in that respect, I thought that this is a really fun thing to experiment with. Okay, I have another question for you guys, and then we're almost out of time. What do you think would happen? What do you think would happen to our X's and O's if we chose, is this going to show up on camera now? What do you think would happen if we chose to add an even row in between the patterning rows? So let's say instead of row 1 being a pattern row and row 2 being a pattern row, what if all the pattern rows were odd numbered rows and all the even numbered rows were just plain knit across, purl across, or plain single crochet across? Does anybody know what would happen if we did that? So in essence, it would make our chart double the height, right? Instead of being a 16 row chart, it would be a 32 row chart. So what do you think that would do to our X's and O's? I'll pause and see if anybody has an answer, and then I'll tell you. All right, I don't see an answer. It would elongate them. If you put an even row in between these, it would elongate them. So instead of having an O, we would have an oval. Instead of being more of a circle, we'd have an oval, and the X would be longer. So it wouldn't make them bigger necessarily, it would make them longer. It wouldn't, I mean, if stretch is a tough word because it's not going to stretch the fabric or anything, but the best word I can think of, yeah, Donna, extended length. Yeah, it would elongate the shapes. So the X's would look much longer, and the O's, instead of being circular, would be more oval in shape. But again, another option, another way to experiment and see what you come up with. And maybe you'll like something about that, and maybe you won't. Maybe you could skip the O's altogether and just do X's, and then they'd just be elongated X's. Or you could skip the X's altogether and just do O's, and the O's could either be round O's or they could be ovals. Like, you can take any part of this chart and extract it from the rest. What if you don't like XOOX? Maybe you just want XO. Maybe you just want a fabric of XOXOXOXOXO. Then you would take that as a multiple of 16 stitches and cast on or crochet in multiples of 16 to do it as a border or some sort of a band. You could do it that way as well. There's a lot of different ways you could still split this off into other things. And we'll continue to talk about this in the coming weeks. And if that interests you, I hope you join me. And it's a make-along, so you make whichever version of any of this you want, and we're live. If you have questions for me on whichever version you make, ask me. I am more than happy to help you any way I can. I want to thank our sponsors, I Like Knitting Magazine and Ancient Art Fibers. And don't forget, there's a coupon code for you to get a discount on making this beautiful shawl with their yarn. The details are in the video description and on the pattern page. And also a reminder that the Alicia Knit Shawl pattern is 100% proceeds are donated to charity to help survivors of domestic violence. So there's all sorts of ways to give, and we can continue talking here about all the ways that we all like to give, because the more we talk about charity and being kind and helping others and paying it forward, we're raising the awareness and raising the inspiration and momentum amongst all of us. Thank you all so much for taking time out of your busy day to spend a few minutes here with me. If you enjoy spending time with me, please consider subscribing to my channel. And if you think any of my content would be interesting to your friends or anybody else, please always feel welcome to share it. And whether you have questions now or later on today, always come back to the video and leave your questions or comments here, and I'd be more than happy to answer you when I get notified from it. Let us make time to create, share, and inspire today and every day. Don't forget, tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. on my 50th birthday, we're going to do a live premiere video, and then at 10 a.m. we're going to go live for the next episode of the Kristin Omdahl Show. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.